At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the November 19th Town Council meeting. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Father, we again invite you into our town council meeting tonight to lead us, guide us, give us your wisdom in all the decisions that we make. And we pray that each decision will benefit all the citizens of Nashville. Amen.
Amen.
The first item on our agenda is the minutes of our last meeting. Were there any corrections to those? Did anybody have any corrections to those? If not, do I have a motion that we approve the minutes?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Minutes are approved. Next on our agenda will be the public comments. We have two people signed up. I think one of them is for the subdivision that we're going to be discussing. If that's the truth, save that till we have our public hearing for that. Am I reading that correctly? Okay. And then we do have Maureen Peacock. So come and state your name and your address.
Good evening, Maureen Peacock, 1108 Birchwood Drive, Nashville. I'm holding my other concerns as you asked for the public input, but this concern is with or without the subdivision, and that is for speed bumps on East Birchwood Drive around the curve. As I was strolling the other day, my grandson had to jump into the grass, and since the speed bumps have been put on golfers years back, a lot of people come through there, even though that beautiful sign that says no through traffic doesn't happen. And I can't say that I follow 25 miles per hour all the time, but I certainly don't exceed 30, or I'm 35. But people are going 45 at least. So I really, for safety reasons, request speed bumps for the entire Birchwood, including East Birchwood and around there. Secondly, I'm not sure how this concerns you. It may or may not, but the tennis courts at Nash Rec are a pure eyesore. So if that's something that can be done by the town, a letter or whatever is appropriate, but something has to happen with those tennis courts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda, Colby.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to ask Maureen Brown to come forward, please. So, as you know, we are nearing the end of our third farmers market season at the Nashville Farmers Market. And since the beginning, we've had an interlocal agreement with Nash County, which allowed their market manager, Maureen, to also serve as the manager in Nashville as well. And Maureen has been instrumental in establishing the Nashville Farmers Market. When we first started, I had no idea how much went into successfully managing a farmers market. She has led and guided us in her methods, procedures, and best practices as we developed all aspects of the Nashville Farmers Market. Maureen helped plant the seed that has become the market we have today, and now it is time for us to sprout and branch out independently. So we wanted to thank Maureen for her dedication and service to the Nashville Farmers Market, and even though the agreement ends at the end of the year, we look forward to a continued good working relationship with Nash County Cooperative Extension and the Nash County Farmers Market as our missions align to support agriculture and provide fresh, quality, local goods to Nashville and Nash County. So again, Maureen, we just wanted to say thank you, and we appreciate everything you've done for the Nashville Farmers Market.
Maureen, I'm coming around. appreciate you so very much, and you're always there with a smiling face guiding us. And we're just so grateful, and you've been a real blessing to our town in getting our market started. And here, some flowers, because you're always a flower around.
Take another.
Briefly. So even though my interlocal agreement is ending, my relationship with the town of Nashville and the farmers market in Nashville will not end. I will still have some input, and I will still always be a resource to help y'all.
Well, it's
So
going to always be part
call,
of your baby.
call on me anytime.
Thank you so
Thank you.
kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda, the zoning ordinance amendment. Sean?
Sean, make sure they can hear you, because I can't hear anything through the speakers. Can y'all hear him?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Because that's not, I'm not sure what's going on.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council and citizens of Nashville. As we always say, it's truly a pleasure to speak to everybody in the walls of the council, especially to our fine citizens of Nashville. As you know, since June, we have been working with Mr. Harvey and InFocus on updating our zoning ordinance. Mr. Harvey has did an outstanding job working and meeting these needs. InFocus always says they are a cooperative extension to our department. Mr. Harvey has truly lived up to that test of being a cooperative extension to the town of Nashville Planning Department by being able to answer these questions. So I would highly recommend him and InFocus on any major project for the outstanding work he has done. As now I will yield to Mr. Harvey, yield to him to pretty much guideline and take us through the updated ordinance that we have met that the council has asked for to bring back to them this evening. Mr. Harvey, thanks, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure I deserve all those accolades, but thank you. It's been our pleasure to provide assistance and take direction from the town staff. We have before you an ordinance that we believe addresses a lot of the major zoning issues that you've identified. So what I will do very quickly, only in the interest of time, is make sure everybody is aware of what we've changed. A lot of our updates are designed, and can everybody hear me okay? Okay. A lot of our updates are designed to ensure that you are compliant with North Carolina General Statute. Bottom line, we come into communities and ensure that you're not going to have any legal challenges as a result of any deficiencies from the statute. This has proven very problematic this last 6 months, because the General Assembly, in their ultimate wisdom, have made a lot of changes to how planning regulations are meant to be observed. In fact, some have been recently made that I am at least semi-proud to say we had already addressed some of the compliance points in your code, especially as it relates to the regulatory standards associated with triplex and quadruplex, i.e. 3 residential unit and 4 residential units in your code prior to the adoption of those regulations. So we have modernized your definition section to ensure consistency with state law, as well as to make sure that appropriate terms are defined in your code. Remember that we have added under section 18-22 jurisdiction, new regulations dealing with state of emergency. And we talked a little bit about this the last time we met. This clause allows your town staff to waive certain requirements in this process where there's a governor-declared or federally emergency-declared event in your community. This primarily allowing you to deal with temporary housing without necessarily requiring all the necessary permits from zoning. It's temporary housing for those that have lost their residences due to a storm. You all, as the town board, have to also authorize this to happen, so it just can't happen in a vacuum. It has to be connected to a state or nationally declared emergency. Again, we've updated your definitions. I'm scrolling through the code, so forgive me. We've clarified a lot of your existing standards as it relates to how much development can occur on a parcel of property. Specifically, 1 permitted land use per parcel That doesn't mean you can't have multi-use development on a property, you just have to go through a specific approval process to do it. But if you have a single residential lot, for example, there can be one principal house on that property. Your ordinance also allowed for auxiliary dwelling units, what some people euphemistically refer to as the granny-in-law suite or the mother-in-law suite. The problem is you didn't have any applicable standards in how that was supposed to be done. Well, you do now. So that is the one exception to my one principal use per lot clause. And remember, commercial's handled differently because there are districts where you are encouraging multiple land uses, and you're going to continue to do so. We have updated your accessory building standards, how you get accessory buildings permitted within the town. We have included a clear sight triangle requirement, so you can ensure that there's clear visibility at intersections to address public safety concerns. You didn't have that originally, you do now. And that's in section 18-57, the ordinance. We were asked to create fence regulations. You now have that, defining what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Remember, fences can go into side and rear yard setbacks. They don't have to observe the principal setback from the property like a structure does. But there are height limitations, construction requirements, and et cetera that you all have directed us to adopt. As we continue through the general list, also remember, we have included regulations giving your town staff limited regulatory authority to modify the ordinance under very certain specific standards. Why? Common sense has to prevail at some point. So, for example, you have an individual building a house that has to meet a 10-foot setback. I'm just throwing out the number. If they can only meet a 9.5-foot setback, your town staff will now have the authority to issue effectively an administrative modification allowing that to be reasonable and legal, instead of requiring them to go for the Board of Adjustment for an evidentiary hearing for a variance. You're going to see a lot of communities doing this. It just makes sense. And we wanted to make sure you had that tool in the toolbox. We have included regulations clarifying sidewalks within your community. That's in section 1861. We've ensured that your dimensional standards for all your districts is now in your ordinance. It didn't used to be. And the problem is it was technically unenforceable because it was not in your ordinance. So we've made sure that that's properly updated in your code. This establishes what the minimum lot area, what the setbacks, minimum lot width are required for each zoning district in the community. We have provided notes and explanations on how the setbacks are to be calculated. Why? To make sure everybody's on the same page and to make sure your staff has reasonable, articulable ability to make a determination. We've included regulations on conditional zoning, which was one of the big requirements you all had of us. This was a tool in the toolbox you all were missing. You went through the process as defined by the statute, but we've now put it in your code and provided you the ability to engage in the conditional zone process with a subsequent reasonable application so you can move a project forward. We have updated your district regulations as it relates to your table of permitted uses, which was arcane and out of date. I hope you like it. This includes definitions of the district. This includes what is typically permitted under this land use category, and this includes exceptions. And the example I'll give you is this. There was a request that, I'll pick on Home Depot and Lowe's for a minute, that building supply facilities such as that not be treated as retail, but be treated as another land use category, and allowed only in certain districts. And that made perfect sense to us. So we included language in the code that provides that explanation so that the lay person reading this document will have the ability to make, oh, I see, this is permitted as this use here versus retail. That's what a lot of this is designed to do. It's designed also to make it easier for the lay person to try to understand what their process is. Your table permitted uses, as I've already indicated, has been updated. We have even updated your standards in terms of what standards various land use have to abide by. So when we get to section 18109, that's the table of permitted uses. Want to remind you all what we did. There are uses that we have listed that are permitted as a matter of right in every district. A lot of that's utilities, roadways, bus passenger shelters, for example, are permitted in every district. You don't want to exclude them. And I'm on page, at least of my document, 49, so everybody can kind of get to that point. We have provided an explanation on land uses that can't go through the conditional zoning process. Let me give you an example. You have specific regulations governing the location of sexually oriented businesses or adult establishments. The conditional zoning process, as you know, is an opportunity for an applicant to bring in a site-specific development plan proposing a specific land use. They go to the planning board, they go to the town board, and you all review the site plan. What you don't want is a land use that you are specifically regulating or has established heavy regulations on to use the conditional zoning process to avoid having to abide by those standards. So what the list does is explain these land uses cannot be reviewed as part of the conditional zone process. We only want to see those developed in accordance with this ordinance, what districts they're required to be in and what standards they have to abide by. Any questions on that? Again, I'm not trying to rush through this, but I want to make valuable use of your time. Remember, your table of permitted uses has been updated to include those uses permitted by right, which still have to get a zoning permit from the staff. Those land uses that are permitted with additional standards, meaning they have to have a site plan showing they comply either with setbacks, buffering, impervious surface limits, whatever. Those uses only permitted with the issuance of a special use permit. We are recommending that go to your Board of Adjustment instead of continuing to the council. And then land uses that are prohibited, where you see no P, no S, which signifies permitted use or special use, and no triangle or delta, as we call it, that signifies a land use only permitted with the issuance of a site plan approval meeting specified conditions. That was the crux of the multitude of changes we made until you get to procedures. One of the concerns I heard from the staff and the planning board is that they felt there wasn't a good explanation of how various processes worked. Specifically, how's a zoning permit reviewed? What's required? How's a subdivision request reviewed? What's required? You now have that. We've even broken it up into provided specific direction on special use permits, sign permits, flood permits, watershed permits. One other major change we made, and we talked about this at length at our last meeting, your landscaping and buffer standards were located in your subdivision regulations, not in zoning originally. Technically, the town staff could not enforce a buffer standard on a commercial site plan or on a multifamily site plan because the regulations were not in the zoning ordinance. We've moved them. We didn't make changes in terms of what's required. We just simply relocated them to the zoning ordinance so they're actually enforceable by Sean, Randy, and the other staff as part of a site plan review process. We updated certain provisions of your subdivision regulations to address sidewalks and to clarify open space. As I've talked to two of you this evening, we're going to be coming back at Randy's request, Mr. Lansing's request, and begin to update your subdivision regulations. That was unfortunately not part of this contract, but you've all asked us to come back and modernize your subdivision ordinance. Well, that's coming. My initial thought is we should have a workable document for you in January where you all can start giving in focus staff feedback. Now, your subdivision review is going to be a little different than your zoning review. Your zoning review was specifically designed to address compliance with NCGS 160D. That is the new provisions for how land use regulations can occur in towns and municipalities. We also modernized that ordinance. Subdivision ordinance is a little bit more subjective. You're going to have a little bit more wiggle room to dictate to me or ask me to make modifications to it because it is supposed to address how you want the community to look as it's creating new lots. So there is a little bit more opportunity for you to give me some requests to see how we're going to handle open space, to see how we're going to handle recreation space, how are we going to process subdivisions in terms of what constitutes staff review versus a board review, for example. These are the kind of things that I'm going to be giving you options, you're going to be giving me feedback. And you're going to have a greater opportunity to ask me to incorporate some reasonable, modest changes for you in those standards. Now, everybody with me so far? We tweaked a couple provisions of your non-conforming section, dealing with manufactured housing because you needed it. We know we're going to be coming back and working with you also on watershed and floodplain. But your town manager and your planning staff have asked that I focus primarily on subdivision rules first, which is fine. We can do that and get you something quickly. A couple things I want to conclude with and then answer any questions you have. I want to remind you, if this is adopted tonight, this becomes the applicable law that any land development project has to abide by. If an application comes in tomorrow morning at 8:05, this is the ordinance they have to abide by. If you have an application in the pipeline now, under North Carolina General Statute, they have what's called permit choice. They can either choose to go to the new ordinance or choose to abide by the current ordinance because they're already in the development review. They have what I think your attorneys and I would call a common law vesting in terms of being able to go under the current regulatory standards. Again, I know you've heard me, and forgive me for repeating myself. You adopt this tonight, whatever comes in tomorrow morning has to abide by this code. The only difference is any project that has a common law vesting is allowed to develop consistent with its approval, and that's going to be under the current ordinance that you're enforcing today.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
He's been real helpful through the process. We appreciate you.
Well, I'm real helpful because you all have been methodic. This is a partnership, and I'm going to stress that again. This is not Michael just coming in telling you how you're going to plan for your community. That's not how I wanted to handle this project, and that's not how you all have handled it. It's been a collaborative effort among staff, planning board members, town council members, and it's going to continue with being a collaborative process. We treat ourselves, and Sean's already said this, we treat ourselves as an extension of your staff. I'm one of your planners. I just have a lot more opinions.
And I'd like to say I appreciate all the time that the staff and the council have put into developing this. If there are no questions, do I hear a motion to go into an open hearing for this?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to discuss anything in these? If so, please come forward. If not, do I hear a motion to close the open hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I hear a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-09 adopting the amendments?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. It carries.
Thank you. See you in about 45 days.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is, let's see, the Birchwood Preserve subdivision.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. As you have before us, we have a proposed construction plan 2024-01 that was submitted by Mr. Varnell on behalf of the developer Turnkey Constructions. And we will go through the agenda staff report. As I always say, I know you've done your due diligence, have read this thoroughly, so we'll just highlight some of the main points so that we can get to the nuts and bolts of the evening night, the public hearing, and the discussion amongst the council members. Mr. Varnell with Stocks Engineering submitted the plat CP 22-2024-01 for a 104.57 acre subdivision for R10 back on September 23rd, 2024. Technical Review Committee, Kevin Varnell, resubmitted the preliminary plat to the TRC team on October 10th, 2024. On that same day, the TRC team committee met, and they were satisfied with the preliminary plat. Notice for a public hearing for review of the preliminary plat was published in the newspaper to run on dates October 31st, November 7th, 14th. And that was proposed subdivision was accessed off Birchwood Drive with the future stub out on Troon Court. The proposed subdivision was accessible to public water and sewer. The streets of the proposed subdivision will be owned and maintained by the town of Nashville. Notice were mailed out on Friday, October 25th, 2024 to adjoining and abutting properties of 252 people within 500 feet. After noticing that, we noticed that majority of the people that got information on this were not on the Fairfield Drive, so we mailed out additional 25 letters to people residing on the Fairfield Road, Oak Court, Cypress Court, Sycamore Court, South Clarendon Drive on October 29, 2024. The proposed site was posted for the public hearing on October 25th, 2024. The front door of the Town Hall, Library, and Parks and Rec Center was also posted the same day. Notice of public hearing was posted on the town's website on October 29, 2024 with a link to click on the proposed subdivision map that most people have come by and you have in your packet, came by and take a look at. The Town of Nashville Future Land Use Map has designated this future property as medium density. Nash County Soil and Water Conservation District, Mr. Stephen Ward sent comments from the Soil and Water attached to your agenda report. Kevin Varnell has provided additional preliminary construction map to show how the water will drain off Golfers Lane. That was a potential problem that did come up in the planning board meeting. Mr. Varnell was able to answer that evening and show a potential map for that. The planning department and TRC committee decided to forego having the developer install curb and gutter since 92 lots are in the watershed overlay district in order to keep harmony with the existing neighborhood this property will abut to and join with. Decision can be changed and modified by the town council this evening upon approving this. If you go to your traffic study report, and I'm just gonna grab this. The previous council, when this first was brought before them, asked for a traffic study report for what was being proposed. At that time, I believe it was townhouses and single-family dwellings. You had 210 single-family houses, 225, 66 townhouses. The recommendations by them that evening were based on the findings of this study. No significant geometric improvements have been identified, nor recommendations to accommodate future traffic conditions. As we continue in our packet, you can see the proposed photos of the site. This is where we post our sign at north-south, post sign east and west. Also, this is a R10 single-family residential unit. Before the planning board meeting, we were under the impression that the developer was doing 219 residential single-family lots. That has been changed. He's only doing 200, and he is making the lots bigger than what our zoning ordinance requires. The R10 requires over 10,000 square feet for one lot. Right now, and I'm going to quote this, but I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, the developer will correct me. He's proposing 12,500 square feet. Is that right, Mr. Varnell?
On average, that's right.
On average, 12,500 square feet per lot. Half of this property is in the watershed district. If you look at your TRC notes, when we had our meeting, we did have some questions that we sent to the developer. They did respond back with answers. One of the things were removing some of the corner lots for pocket parks. The developer and his team did respond back to town saying due to the cost of having to do the roundabout, they thought that would balance things out. Of course, the TRC team nor the planning board thought to push that any farther because we understood the cost of the project for that park. Everything else the developer did meet. Sidewalks will be responsibility of the town once this project is completed. And as we said, if we take it, you done your due diligence and read through the entire packet. If you got the submission for a construction plan for the planning board and for the town council, the developer has to meet every one of these steps from section A all the way to 4B1. And just to say for the sake of time, we won't go through every one of these, but the developer has met every one of these steps that we have requested for in our subdivision orders for issuing a turn-in construction plan for review. Mayor and council, the sum linear feet is 11,807 linear foot. 104.57 acres, 200 residential lots. Mayor and council, I think you have heard enough from me this evening on the construction plat. I do believe we do have people here in the audience that would like to speak on it in the public comment session. So Mayor, I will yield to you to open up the public comment session. Mr. Barnell is here to represent the developer. I guess we will get him up first before we go to public comments, and then I can come back and give you my recommendations at the end, Mayor. Mayor, I yield to you and the council.
At this time, do I hear a motion to open the public hearing concerning this development at the Birchwood Preserve?
So made.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If you would like to speak concerning this, would you please come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Jerry Calcutt. I live at 618 Golfers Lane. And I had a couple of questions. They may answer them, when he talks about it. But one was on the buffer. I watched the planning meeting online and was about the 50-foot buffer. And I live on the golf course side. So all the construction is going to be back there. As to that buffer, who's going to maintain that? I was talking to a neighbor today, and I know Mr. Davis said that some people had expressed interest in possibly buying that 50-foot buffer behind their homes. But what happens if I buy it and my neighbor doesn't?
Yeah.
Now, who's going to maintain the buffer in there, and who's going to be responsible for that? Because then if you may have a person in the middle that doesn't, and the two neighbors do, and it's going to be sitting there. So that was one question. And the other is just a concern about how long this is going to go on. I know I've seen the construction going on behind the Nash Central School over there. And all of that infrastructure that's going on, it's going to really affect the quality of life of those of us that live on the Golfers Lane side of that construction. It's going to be a long time. And so it's going to really have a negative impact on us that live on that side of the street. And that's just a concern I have, and I'd like to see how that's going to be mitigated a little bit. And looking, I had not seen the layout until tonight. It's a little bit unnerving what all is going to be going on out there. So I'd like to just see how that's going to be addressed while the construction's going on. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And, can we address any of them tonight?
You have both the applicant here this
I can't-
evening. Robbie and Jason Davis are here. And then, of course, their engineer, Stocks Engineering. So maybe ask one or the other to come to the podium and answer the
About-
gentleman's questions.
That'll be good.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Kevin Barnell with Stocks Engineering, representing the developer, and I'm sure at some point I'll invite him up to speak on a few of the topics, but I'll go through really quickly an outline that I have, and maybe that'll answer a lot of questions that some of the public will have. So let me run through this real quick and try to do it quickly. The proposed Birchwood Preserve project involves the residential development of 105 acres, formerly known as the Birchwood Country Club. R10 is the current zoning of the property, and a rezoning is not being proposed. The R10 zoning district has a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet, like Sean suggested. Our smallest lot is 10,800 square feet, with the average lot size of around 12,500 square feet. The minimum lot width required per the zoning ordinance is 75 feet, and the narrowest we provide with this plan is 80 feet at the setback. There are 200 R10 residential lots proposed, which is a 41 lot reduction from the original plan that this board saw, and what would be allowable with the current ordinance if designed to the minimum ordinance requirements. In our case, the developer has purposefully chosen to exceed the minimum expectations for this development, creating larger and wider lots than required by the town ordinance. This property is located within the existing R10 zone community, and the subject property is currently zoned R10. Medium density is allowed to concentrate 4 units outside the watershed overlay and 3 units inside the watershed. This project as proposed is 2.15 units per acre, which is well below the maximum currently allowed. There are approximately 43 acres of the subject property within the watershed overlay district, which limits the development again to 3 units per acre within the overlay and encourages stormwater conveyance through open ditches. Curb and gutter is discouraged within the overlay district due to stormwater concerns. closed drainage systems, and the additional impervious area it requires. There are multiple drainage easements that drain from Golfers Lane onto the subject property, and these drainage swells and ditches will be picked up and allowed to drain through the property. The town requires this site to meet pre versus post runoff control per the NCDEQ stormwater program, and this site will manage that stormwater through the installation of new and much larger stormwater ponds on this property. The residents along Golfers Lane and the downstream of this development should see a reduction or improvement in flooding conditions during storm events with the new drainage features that are proposed. And ultimately, the traffic impact analysis you guys have seen was conducted by Ramey Kemp and Associates with oversight by the town of Nashville and DOT. The traffic study not only studied the immediate intersections, but also studied 64 Business and North Clarendon Drive, North Clarendon and East Washington Street, Club Drive and Washington Street, East Railroad and NC 58, and Birchwood Drive and NC 58 to determine if any conditions at any of these intersections warranted improvement from the development. And based on the traffic impact analysis and confirmed by DOT, the traffic generated from this development does not warrant additional improvements, and a copy of the TIA was presented to the town of Nashville. Although a lot of the design will come at a later date and be reviewed by the Technical Review Committee, there are a few important items to note. There are roughly 300 pine trees on the subject property today, and these trees will largely be removed due to grading required to provide adequate drainage, as previously discussed, from the existing Birchwood community, and therefore have not been shown on the plan. But during the design and construction process, trees that can be saved will be protected, but it will be unrealistic to believe that most of these trees will not be removed. It is worth noting that the proposed project is proposing to install 650 new large canopy trees, like oaks or maples, during the development, which will more than compensate for the trees being removed. Street lights will be designed and installed by Duke Energy, and a sidewalk is proposed along the street as shown on your provided plan. As far as the comments that the gentleman previously made, construction to this subject site will come in through Club Drive, so we really have one entrance kind of in and out for construction traffic to avoid any disruption to the adjacent neighborhood. Obviously, there will be construction going on in the backyard of some of the homes, but as far as construction traffic, none of that will be going up and down Golfers Lane or Birchwood Drive. It will go directly out Club Drive. As far as the 50-foot buffer, I'll defer to the developer if Mr. Davis wants to come up and address that 50-foot buffer. I think he can speak better on that. Do you guys have any other questions for me while I'm here? And I'll be happy to come back and answer any questions from you.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
The wetlands part, we're not we're putting a waiver on the curb and gutter. Are we sure that the ditches and stuff are going to be able to make that water, direct that water away from that section, so we would not have any flooding over there?
Absolutely. So ultimately, we'll have to provide calculations when we go through the technical review committee, and we'll provide those to town staff that will show that the ditches will carry the water that we need it to carry. And then also from a drainage standpoint, we'll make sure it runs downhill. And again, we've got some much larger stormwater ponds that are currently on the site that they're seeing and used to seeing now. So all of that will help with drainage both upstream and downstream of this property.
How many stormwater ponds we got?
So for this particular phase of it, I've got them shown in blue. So the map up there identifies a couple of the drainage easements that had come from the existing site from the south, and then ultimately the ponds that we're showing are in blue. And again, much larger than any of the little depressions that are there now. And then there are two existing ponds that I did not show in blue that will remain.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So the blue ones are new ponds,
Blue ones are new ponds, that's right.
green, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council. Pleased to be here tonight. My name is Robbie Davis. I'm here with my son Jason, who is the home builder. That is not me, but I am involved in the development of it. If you'll notice on your map, we're using the word buffer, and the plan that we submitted doesn't use the word buffer. It uses the word reserved area. And the reason that is a reserved area is because ever since we have bought this property, which has been a few years ago now, those people on Golfers Lane, quite a number of them, have requested to get more rear yard in their property, on their property. Those yards or those lots are pretty shallow at the present time. They are used to using quite a bit of the property, and some of them call me very, very frequently about doing that. We decided to initially design it this way with that 50-foot reserved area. Once we get the plan approved, then we intend to have a meeting with all those people that back up to our development. Mostly those that are on Golfers Lane, make that offer to them to purchase that 50-foot, and if they choose, if we don't get by far the majority of them doing that, that 50-foot area there reserved will just be included in the rear lots of the lots that we are developing to back up in there. We don't intend to create a buffer. It's not required because it's residential to residential. And of course, the question of who's going to maintain it is a great question. And it's not something that the developer wants to maintain indefinitely. And it's not something that a homeowners organization that would want to maintain as well, that back up into each other's yard. And if you are familiar with it, and there may be a few here that do that, I think one of them gentlemen already said, and Mr. Street has been one that has asked so many times that wishes to purchase that. But I really think the majority of them will. We're going to make it very reasonable for those to purchase that. But that's the idea of that 50-foot area back there. And I'll be glad to try to answer a question about that. I have done it in 2 previous cases on subdivisions we developed. One in Roanoke Rapids on the Roanoke Rapids Lake, and it worked very well. They actually purchased 75 feet in that case, and we had 92% of them purchase it. And in the end, I looked the other day before I came up here, there are only 2 left out of about 82 that didn't purchase those. So it has worked very well. Of course, we're going to make it reasonable for them to have that area, and it would enhance their lots quite a bit. Any questions on
Any
that?
questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. So are you going to give first right to the person behind? Or are you going to what if somebody wanted to come in and buy the whole thing? Are you going to allow that?
No, our intent is to let the person that backs up to it. It's not something we would sell that area to one person that wanted it all. And I have had that question asked, but it would be for the person that backs up to it. And see, what we'll be doing is calculating on a per square foot basis, because each lot is a little bit different over there. Some of them are 100 foot, some of them are 150 foot, but we got to maintain the 50 foot, so we'll have straight lines all through the back of that building.
Okay.
So just to clarify, the offer we put out there for the existing homeowners on golfers who back up to that, and if you have a majority of people who want to purchase theirs, then you'll go forward with that.
Yes, ma'am.
So the ones that remain that aren't purchased will just be included with the homes that you sell on the other side.
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
I got you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I did hear Mr. Varnell make mention of the tree piece, and a couple of my constituents have reached out to me about that. I have read in some of my reporting, but prior to the meeting tonight, of what Mr. Varnell spoke of, perhaps roughly 300 of the pine trees coming out, but however, 650 going back in. So that's a win-win, I would think, in my opinion. However, my question would be, how would you frame that from the perspective of, will this 650 trees be phased in as you phase in the building, or is it over the longevity of your development project, meaning no trees until the very end specifically of your project?
Actually, your ordinance covers that, and it tells how many trees we have to put per linear foot of street that we put in. And so we will follow that as we're putting streets in, we'll be putting the trees in along with that. So it would follow development throughout there. And of course, no trees will be removed until we get to that particular phase. And we do intend to save those ones that we can save. Quite frankly, it's expensive to take those trees down. We have developed about 15 lots so far, and Jason, remind me again, how many trees have we taken down? 7. Okay, 7 trees we have had to take down, developing the lots that we had developed already. So there'll be some that'll be able to stay, but it just depends on where that tree is.
Thank you so much for your consideration.
Any other questions for Mr.
So a
Davis?
clarification, so the trees won't go in when the house goes in, they'll go in when the street goes in. Is that correct?
Please restate your question.
The trees, per the ordinance, go in when the street is developed, not when the house is built. Is that what you're saying?
Kevin, are they street trees, or tell me what the ordinance reads?
Yeah, so the street trees are required when the street is put in.
Okay.
Although we may want to potentially bond that until the driveway is put in.
Right.
To make sure we're not moving trees immediately after we put them in, but ultimately they go in with the street.
Yeah, what he's saying is your ordinance requires street trees, which we have in many ordinances that we've done, so they will have to go in as the street goes in.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
So with the trees, sorry, I represent the tree board, so this was going to be one of my questions. I just wanted to get all the information first. So you had mentioned in maple and other large canopy trees. If it's a street tree and we're dealing with, is it going to be overhead utilities at all, or all underground?
All underground
Okay,
utilities.
so we don't have to worry about larger trees. And so out of the 600, are 100% of those going to be street trees, or are they going to be placed sporadically through the properties as well?
They're all street trees.
All street?
They will be on the property, kind of behind the sidewalk, because we have ditches here with a sidewalk behind. So it will look really nice, and it won't be immediately at the pavement like
Okay.
you normally see a street tree right behind the curb.
Yeah, and we'll be flexible on that if there's something else that you wish to see. We've
I
got a
just-
number of trees we got to put in. If you'd rather have them somewhat in the yards, that would be appeasing to us
I
as
just
well.
didn't want 100 crepe myrtles. The fact that we're having larger canopy trees put in, I think is a fantastic thing.
Right.
And yeah, to make it look like a more of a mature neighborhood, however that works, whether it's street or on the properties as well.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
I had one
Oh,
other question
wait.
that I don't know if Kevin or Mr. Davis is going to address, but it's the pocket park. So when it was brought up in the TRC regarding the pocket park, because this is going to be, I'm thinking of a very family-friendly subdivision that's being put in. Is there, I guess, I understand that the reason given was that the roundabout is going to cost a lot of money. Is the roundabout something that we are requiring, or something that the traffic study is requiring?
The traffic study did not require it. We were asked early on by the town to consider doing that. The town has worked pretty hard to get the right-of-way to do that in. It will remove a very dangerous intersection, and we committed up front that we would build the roundabout. It's gonna cost us somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000 to do that. And in addition to that, we have reduced our lot number by 20%, which, believe it or not, causes us to give up about $2.6 million that we could obtain for those other lots that we're giving up. So we just at a point where we have invested quite a bit in it that the ordinance doesn't require, and would ask that we not be required to build a park.
Okay, and I guess I didn't realize that it was the town that had pushed that. If we waive curb and gutter, I'm imagining that will be a pretty good savings. So I'm wondering if we might have some wiggle room and negotiation to put a pocket park.
We really, as I said, Kate, are to the point where we do not want to get involved in a park, simply because of the investment that we have given up already. Honestly, the best thing for me and my son to do is to sell this to someone else, which we have been asked so many times to buy it from these national home builders, and we would make much more money, and we would do it very, very quick, but that's just not what we want to do. As you know, I have a keen investment in Nash County, and we want to make this a great-looking place, and it's where my son will be for many years building houses. I don't build houses, and quite frankly, I'm very near the end of my career, so my job is to get the development in for him.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of things for Kevin, probably. So, maybe Mr. Davis, I'm not sure, but, so Street E seems kind of random to me. Is there a need for that? I mean, that could save some money for a park.
We would love to do that, but your current ordinance has a block length requirement. And so
Right.
Street E serves to meet that block length requirement. So ultimately, the only reason is there is so that we do not exceed that block length.
But doesn't the left side going out to Troon exceed the limit then?
It does not. So if you measure up the length, it does not exceed it. So ultimately, it's that section from Street D around to Club Drive that, for whatever reason, goes over that. And it may not be much, but it does exceed it.
It just seems kind of random.
And there's really, if you go by Street A, there's really nowhere to stub if you're going towards Troon Court. So even if you wanted to stub there, you've got existing lots to the south and a pond to the north. So there's really no reason to stub there. And I think we certainly would entertain, if the council wanted to do that, to eliminate Street E. And we could use that 60-foot area for a reserved area for common area.
Are we allowed?
So, I mean, I would definitely entertain a conversation based on that, for sure. But then my other comment was, I know that the sidewalk has been an issue and we're changing it, but, you know, these cul-de-sacs that just have these random, you know, sidewalks, I mean, I would think we could take that sidewalk square footage and move it to another spot in the neighborhood to make it more friendly for walking, because walking halfway through a cul-de-sac that goes a couple hundred feet is stupid.
Right.
And so, and I don't see, on Street C, the cul-de-sac, I don't see sidewalks on that. I looked, and either I didn't, it looks like the end before they get to the sidewalk.
It does. Street E does not show sidewalks all the way, but it should.
Okay. But if the council approved, we could actually take those length of those, of Street C and Street A, the cul-de-sac, and instead of putting them there, we could actually put them somewhere else to make a better walkable neighborhood. And I actually like the idea of taking that dumb street out and having a pocket park. And so I'd like to have the conversation, if y'all would like to have the conversation.
If we're allowed to have that conversation, I would like to have that conversation.
So, because, you know, we have the curb and gutter ordinance that half the neighborhood's gonna require.
Right.
But you know, we can have a conversation.
Right.
But we have that ordinance already in place too. And so,
So you want to do away with the cul-de-sac on Street C?
no, not do away with
No,
it, just do away with the sidewalk and move that somewhere else.
Move
Move the
sidewalk.
sidewalk somewhere else. And then with Street E, since it's only there to shorten the length of, I guess, Street A without a break.
Mayor, as a point of order, maybe before you engage in negotiation with the developer on the layout, you want to
We'll hear from the rest of the people, that's what I was
Sure.
thinking. So let me see if anybody else has any comments, please. Anyone else here to speak to this?
I would be glad to address that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here to speak to this tonight?
Joey Rabel, 404 South Austin Street, Nashville, North Carolina. I'm just worried about the traffic when you got the railroad tracks on Club Drive going into this new subdivision and the roundabouts, because the train comes through a lot of times for the day and night. And what about with all the people? Does the people know about the roundabout on the house on the corner of Club and East Birchwood on both ends? Because people need to know, and then speeding also, because people are cutting through Birchwood to get to 64, like from Glover Park and all that. So that's my main concern was, what about the traffic when the train comes? It's going to back up all the way to where the stop sign is, and then all the way towards the runabout and all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in the audience, from the audience? Kate, you said you had something.
I did, just, I have already gotten answers to these questions, so I'm not concerned about them any longer, but just to have it on the record so that the people know that these questions were asked and answered. One of them was the responsibility of the sidewalks. The developer will install them, and the town will be in charge of them. The other is, that wasn't addressed tonight, was there's portions on the soil map that were provided that the property is labeled as frequently flooded. And in this map shown, there are houses that are being built there. And so I had asked if there was going to be any mitigation for that to prevent any flooding of those homes. And that's when it came about that really the entire topography, I guess, of this property is going to be regraded and drains put in and things like that. And that's why all of these trees have to come down, because that was another one of my questions that was answered. And so the flooding issue and the rain issue, I know, was a big concern for a lot of the people that live there. So it, according to what the plans are, won't be a problem for the people on Golfers, and it also won't be a problem for the new homes that are being put in there. And then the other questions I had were trees and parks that we're still talking about.
Okay, so Mr. Davis, if you would come back and, we should come out of, public hearing now. So do I hear a motion that we come out of public hearing?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So, now if you would come and have conversation with the council.
As your question about the street E, if we were to eliminate that street, that certainly would give us funds to reserve an area for I think you're calling them pocket parks. I'm not sure I know what a pocket park is, but
Coy can tell us what a pocket park is.
we'd be glad to work with you along those lines, because linear foot of street does cost a lot of money. And as you said, it doesn't serve any purpose other than to meet the ordinance that we had to meet with the maximum distance we could have on the street without an intersecting street. What I would want to do, though, is we really need to get approval of this tonight if we can. I wouldn't want that to push me out another month or two. We would agree to work with you and do that, but on the other hand, I do need to be able to get it approved so we can move forward. We don't have many more lots at all, just a handful that we can build on. And it takes quite a while to do development, as you know, and we're just anxious to get started.
So with that area, how much more area could you reserve for a park area?
I'm not going to be able to stand here and answer that question honestly without doing some calculations, but certainly, Kate, if you don't mind me calling you Kate, and if
I
you
don't
would
mind
call
at all.
me Robbie, what is a pocket park and how large is a pocket park?
Coy, can you come on up?
What's that?
I'm asking Coy, our
Okay.
Parks and Rec Director.
Okay.
Good evening again. So, pocket park is normally, like it sounds, it's just a small park in a neighborhood. Normally it takes up, 1 to 3 municipal lots, and as far as what's in the park, it really is kind of open and varies, but it's just a common area. A lot of them just have like a gazebo, picnic shelter, something like that, small. You can put a playground in it, stuff like that, but it's just a common area in that for people to recreate.
And it can be given to the town to use, or it could be done with the HOA. It could be either way.
Right, either way that
I
you
don't
want to
see
do
why
it.
not,
It can
but-
provide recreation just for your subdivision, or it can be something that's,
I would want to donate it to the town and not have it left, because we are trying to not have a HOA in the subdivision.
Oh, okay.
If at all possible, it may be a few things that we have to do,
Mm-hmm.
but we want to very much minimize it so it doesn't have much cost at all in HOA fees, is what
Mm-hmm.
our goal is. There's not one in Birchwood now, and we really want to maintain it that way. But your description of that would not be an issue. I'm sure we could work that out. And I think it's a great idea.
Mayor,
Okay, yes.
with that being said,
Well, I'd like to do this back to sidewalks first before you start getting into the
okay,
motion.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, like I said, there's a random amount of sidewalk on 2 small streets that I think we could incorporate those somewhere else for a more walkable community, by using the same square footage or a little more if necessary to make it more walkable. Because a dead-end street, we learned that in Nashville now, is really weird, and we need to stop encouraging that.
Now, are you talking about putting sidewalks other than those streets, taking off and putting it somewhere else?
So the
in
cul-de-sacs
development?
just have it halfway
Sure,
up and it
understand.
stops,
Mhm.
which you know,
Sure.
it makes no
Because we're
purpose.
putting it on one side.
So instead of putting on those two small cul-de-sacs, you put that same square footage on a different street somewhere and make it more walkable.
I have no issue with that. It seems like we've got them on all streets, and you gotta
Right,
walk
but
them.
I think what he's saying is that if you're walking on one street, you then have to cross the road to walk on another one, and then you have to cross the road again to walk on another one. Like, there's no, like, loops and connectivity. So
I
if we
got
could
it.
take the little disjointed ones from the cul-de-sacs and Street E and use that square footage
To make it-
elsewhere.
To make it flow better.
Okay. I certainly don't have any issue with that at all.
Okay, Larry?
Well, what's been said, and I hope everybody's questions have been answered, I would offer a motion that we will go ahead and approve this based on the fact that we would ask the developer to eliminate Street E and to replace it with what we call a pocket park, and make the adjustments to the streets that sidewalks that was just mentioned. And I think they're all agreeable to that. So I offer that motion to go ahead and approve this plan.
I second that motion.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is the Project Sprout Development Purchase Agreement.
No need to sit here all night.
Okay, Mr. Lance.
Mayor and council, as you know, the town's been actively engaged in pursuing economic development with its economic development partners. And to that effort, we have the good fortune of attracting what is being called Project Sprout on 55 acres in our West Nashville Commerce Park. Project Sprout is being proposed by Will Carnegie and his companies, LEK LLC and Ripe Inc. And they propose to purchase 55 acres of the town's land in the West Nashville Commerce Park and for $150,000, invest $5 million over 5 years, construct 50,000 square feet of commercial industrial space or buildings, and create 25 new jobs with an annual average wage at or above the county's median, which right offhand I forget what that amount is. Per NC General Statute 158-71, the town can enter into a development agreement, which we have drafted through negotiations of the council and Mr. Carnegie over the last year and a half. And after holding and convening that public hearing, then the council can go ahead and act on or approve the subdivision, the economic development agreement for this project. So at this time, Mayor, it would be appropriate to open a public hearing. And we do have the applicant or Mr. Carnegie here this evening. If you would like him to explain to the council and to the audience here what they're proposing to do, I think he would probably enjoy doing that.
Would you like to hear? Where is Mr.? Okay, come on up, Will.
These pillars.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Will Carnegie, founder of Ripe Revival, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. As Mr. Lansing said, this has been a long project in the works, and we're excited to be able to hopefully have your approval to pursue this project. For those that are not aware, Ripe Revival is a family of companies, both for-profit and a not-for-profit, that focuses on the purpose of reviving communities through food. We are a grower, packer, shipper, processor, and food distribution organization who aims to support farmers and work to bridge the gap between excess and access. This property and the proposed agreement would allow Ripe Revival and the family of companies to expand its footprint, to continue growing our business, to continue growing the impact that we can have on North Carolina agriculture and agritourism. And so we've got aspects of this property that we have, proposed a development agreement for, with the south side of the property being industrial for a manufacturing facility that has the ability to process almost 660 million pounds of food per year. We did receive a grant from the state of North Carolina for this facility and have other grants pending for this. And on the north side of the property, we have the plans to create a destination aspect that will attract individuals to come and experience farming, food, philanthropy, and just family. And so the idea is that we will have a retail store, a food hall, an event pavilion, an amphitheater, public trails, and other aspects that we believe will be a major value proposition, not only to the town of Nashville and Nash County, but to the industry as a whole. Our nonprofit will operate on this campus as well with a economic development center that intends to drive education and life skills and development, where we can facilitate empowerment of communities and help other local businesses obtain good employees and develop a workforce. And so happy to answer any questions, but am going to reiterate how thankful I am for being able to have this opportunity. I know it's been a lot of work, and everybody's been extremely professional and patient, and we thank you for that.
Thank you, Will. At this time, do I hear a motion for us to go into a public hearing concerning this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this resolution?
Susan.
Good evening. Susan Phelps here as your economic development partner. So I'm very glad that Will was here to talk about his project, and just want to thank the council and staff, especially staff, for working with us. I went back and looked at our initial start date on this project, and we were in the fall of 2022. So it has been a long one, and I think we're really excited to see it come to fruition, and happy to answer any questions. We have worked with Will on this for a long time and have seen it evolve. Also, the State Department of Agriculture funding his processing center, I think, really gives a good stamp of approval to the project. So we're happy to see it move forward, but happy to answer any questions and just offering the county's support for this economic development project.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes, sir.
Susan, what is that Nash County average wage?
$49,952. I think. Very close to that. Don't quote me.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If not, do I hear a motion to come out of the public hearing?
So made.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
If there are no other questions or comments, do I hear a motion for us to approve Resolution 2024-30, an economic development and land purchase agreement between the town of Nashville and WEK LLC and Ripe INC for Project Sprout?
If I may,
Yes.
I've had several conversations with the attorney for Mr. Carnegie today. He has had a medical or family medical leave today, and we have a couple of very minor tweaks, editorial discussions we're having about some of the language that I could bore you to death and explain what conversations are about. But it's very customary when you've got a complicated agreement as this is, that before we ask you and the developer to execute, that the lawyers have a final version that's been fully discussed and shared. And in this case, we'd like to just add to the motion, if we could, a provision that the approval is on condition that minor, non-substantive corrections and edits be allowed to be made in the document, as may be agreed to between the attorneys for the developer and for the town. And that might take another day or two to just get us together on those, the last word, but that little caveat to the resolution, I think we would recommend.
So do I hear a motion to approve with the exception of the non-substantive
minor edits.
Yeah.
Based on what he just said, I move to approve.
I second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
This is a very exciting
need a second.
project.
We're excited, Will.
Second.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is, the ARPA policies.
Mayor and council, as you know, the town of Nashville has received monies through the American Recovery Plan Act, and we are required to have a number of policies with regard to receiving of that grant money, a cost allocation plan, a civil rights and non-discrimination policy, a conflict of interest policy, an eligible use policy, procurement policy, and records retention policy. Now, we have these already. They're just missing key components of what the ARPA Act requires. So instead of going back and editing and amending all of our existing policies, we just put in the packet the ones that were being advised and recommended by the state to adopt, and it has all their required language in it. So we have attached an allowable cost policy, the civil rights and non-discrimination policy, the conflict of interest policy, the eligible use policy, the the procurement policy and records retention, and they all meet the ARPA requirements.
Any questions?
You said we already had these policies before?
Most of them we do, yes, but they're missing some key language that's required,
So you had to go back and tweak some of them?
yes.
Okay, so.
They were very legalese when I read them. It's like,
Right.
Willis Raz calls it wordsmithing.
So do I hear a motion to approve and adopt resolution 2024-31 ARPA allowable cost policy, resolution 2024-32 a civil rights and non-discrimination policy, and resolution 2024-31 an eligible use policy, a conflict of interest policies, and procurement policy, and a records retention policy?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approved. Coy, we're glad to have you back for this one.
Good evening one last time. So the Parks and Recreation Department was recently notified of a grant award from the DeLeon Carter Foundation in the amount of $2,500 to develop a new program, which we're calling the Nashville Brick Builders. This program will feature after-school workshops and summer camps for elementary-age children, where participants will learn the fundamentals of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics through Legos. So attached is the award notification letter from the DeLeon Carter Foundation outlining the conditions of the grant for the council's review and approval. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
That was exciting. Any questions for Coy?
I'm assuming that was enough to cover what you want to do, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So do I hear a motion to approve and accept the 2,500 DeLeon Carter Foundation grant to develop the new PRCR development program called Nashville Brick Builders?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye. And listen,
Accepted.
I'd like to mention that this family has really done quite a bit for Nashville in the past years. So she's to be appreciated, well, her family's to be appreciated.
So, if there are any comments?
Yes, Mayor, yesterday afternoon, we met with the library board, and they posed a question that I need the council to look at. Their term of office on the board goes for 3 years at a time, with the option of one additional year to be extended. We've got 3 people on the library board now that came on board in 2021, and because of COVID, they never did anything, so they don't feel that they've worked their 3 years out and would like to be given the opportunity to extend that 3-year term, because nobody's been promised to come on board. Just let them extend their term and do some work for 3 years if it's all right with the council, but they can't do it without our approval. And I don't think that's asking too much, because they didn't do any work, no fault of their own. It was because of COVID. So I think we need to allow them to extend that 3-year term out for those people.
But wouldn't we have to put that like on our next agenda, or I think we would.
We
But
would.
yeah, we can,
But
yeah, but we can do that.
I request we put on the
Okay.
next agenda. And let either Brian or the other lady, assistant, Melanie, let them know that it was brought up and it will be on the next agenda.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think there's great things going on in Nashville, and I'm glad we had a big turnout tonight, and we're going to work together and make this town great.
It's already great, it's just gonna get better. Any other? If not, I'd just like to say thank all of you for coming out. We do appreciate our citizens coming out. And I just want to say, I hope everyone has a blessed Thanksgiving, and we'll see you at our next council meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.